Hey everybody, in this section we're going to be taking a look at practicing one-point perspective layout, but then including value studies with color, meaning that we're going to work with colors and how light and dark they can get with highlights and shadows. So let's start off by laying out a piece of drawing paper with a couple rectangular boxes going down vertically like this. And you can I'm labeling like dark to light, light to dark, because we're going to be practicing some value there. Then in the remainder of the paper, let's create a horizon line with a vanishing point. I'll just label that VP for vanishing point. And that's where our lines will go back. And we're going to create some simple shapes that will turn into 3D. So this will be review for a layout so we can practice some coloring. So I'll do one in each quadrant. I'm going to try some things that are curvy, like I'm going to make a cylinder on this side, so I'll make a circle. I'm doing a rectangle on the right. I'll try a triangle up here. And then what I'm going to create is I'm going to create a cone, a couple cones, and I'm going to do a cone that's below your eye level or below the vanishing point, and one up above. And you'll notice that I didn't finish the cones yet. And I'm going to explain why. First of all, let's make these 3D forms. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the edges of all our shapes and bring them back to the vanishing point with these convergence lines. And then to complete them, I'm going to take a parallel line based off the edge that I'm bringing back and finish that up. Once I get one side done, it tells me how far back the other side should go. And again, right here, another parallel line. No matter how tight the angle is, the lines always need to be parallel. Feel free to erase back your convergence lines. Remember, to create a cylinder, we start with a circle and then we go to the outer edges of the circle and get those two borders back. Follow that curve, match it up down the road where you want your cylinder to end. There we go. So I'm just going to do this around also on the triangle here too. You're going to notice on the triangle, I'm going to turn it into this. I get that top angle. It's very tight, but it still is needed. Sometimes I'll make a mark to tell myself how deep I want it to go back in space. And look at this angle. This is really tight. Still staying parallel. There we go. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. If a cone is below your eye level and it's sitting down like that, you're going to see, you're not going to see the opening of it. But if it's above eye level up there, you are. So you'd create an ellipse here. So you'd do one half of the curve there, and then you'd mirror it up there. And now you have an open cone. So if you were looking up at it in the sky or something, you'd see the opening to it. And down here, you'd just get the lower ellipse edge because you wouldn't be able to see inside of it, because it's laying on the ground or below your eye level. Okay, now that we established that, we're going to talk about coloring with light and shadow. This is the most important part of this video. What I'm going to do is create a little like landscape here against that horizon, make it look like a sun is coming up behind a mountain. This is I'm literally putting the sun where the vanishing point is, because we're going to talk about light source now. Light source is where you're getting light from. And we're going to be basically using the vanishing point as the light source. So if light were to hit an object, where would it hit it first? Because that's where the highlight would be. And then the area that it doesn't hit would be where the darkest values are. So we're going to talk about value here. I'm going to take a red color pencil, and I'm going to do a dark to light fill in this rectangle. So the intensity of the color from the color pencil happens by you pressing harder. And so from pressing harder to pressing less with the pencil as you move from dark to light, you'll get a more intense red to a very soft, airy red, as you can see here. And I have to do it a few layers to get a nice balanced fade. But what if I want to darken the red? Because that red may be very intense where it says dark, but it's actually not dark. Some people go right for the black color pencil. We're going to talk about color here. There are warm colors and cool colors in the color wheel. And If you use a warm color, such as a red, to color something, you want to use a cool color to darken it, because an orange and a yellow are not going to darken a red. But the opposite of red on the color wheel is a green. So if I use green in the darkest area of the red and then I fade it towards like more the medium red, it's going to create a more natural dark red than using a black. So again, I'm just using it in the darkest area and then really quickly fading it into like the more medium toned red, never going into the light area. A good way to finish it is take the original color, which is my red, and then sandwich it over that green, and it helps the colors blend. And we're going to do that again here, where I'm going to use a different color from the cool color spectrum to darken the red. Sometimes when you have like a very geometric edge, like on a rectangle here, you can use a ruler up against it when you're coloring to create a nice clean edge. So I did my fade of red, but instead of green, I'm going to use another cool color, blue. Again, I'm going to do it only in the darkest area of the red, and I'm going to make sure to fade it away by the time I get halfway up. Again, a few layers of this, and then again, I'll take the red and I'll sandwich that in there. You'll get a deeper purplish kind of burgundy red with this effect. The green gave you more of like a deep brick red. If you don't like all those little white marks in the paper that are left after coloring, try using a white color pencil. The wax in it helps smush and get rid of some of those white little particles to create a smoother effect. I would try that out so you guys can see if you like that. It's a nice finishing move. So now let's put this fade of color into practice. I'm going to look at this cylinder here. We're going to do the cylinder, and we're going to do that box on the right for coloring today. I'm going to label a couple things. I'm going to label L, M, and D. L means light. That's where it would be the lightest. M means mid-tone, where I have like the medium color, and D would be dark. So I'm going to use my red here. I'm going to start with the mid-tone, and I'm going to fade to the light, just like I did in the last thing I practiced. And then the dark side is going to be a really deep red fill of color. And maybe down by the bottom of the midtone a little bit deeper, and then I'm just going to fade. That creates three-dimensionality. But I'm going to take my green now and deepen that red where it's the darkest. And again, it instantly deepens it. I'm going to take my red, sandwich that over the green to kind of get a nice deep blend. There we go. Now, after I do these blends here, there's something called a cast shadow. That's the shadow an object projects. So here's the sun coming up. Light is going to be coming at the object. I'm going to use this arrow as an example. Light's coming at it. We're going to use the vanishing point. I'm going to shoot some guidelines past the object using the edges of the object, like that, where they kind of touch this fictitious ground I have. And I'm going to do a fade of color. I'm going to pretend that my ground down here is going to be blue. And I'll show you why it might be useful to kind of place a color down here when you're doing some shading. And then I'm going to project my cast shadow. So I'm going to make a blue kind of environment, a blue land. Think about this as like a blue field of color. It's going to make it look like the cylinder sitting. I'm going to take that blue and now I'm going to deepen it and fade it off using that perspective lines from the object. And then I'm going to take some red, because that's the color of the object, and I'm going to deepen the blue where it meets. And I'm going to actually take a little bit of black and just put it just where the shadow starts and then fade it really quick. So I'm doing a value scale here to fade the cast shadow. And what that's doing is it's projecting out a shadow to make it look as three-dimensional as possible, so it looks like something's really sitting down. We're going to try that again. I'm going to put some cast shadows off the edge shooting out at us. So we'll use the vanishing point to portray our shadows. And I'm going to create a blue box here. And again, I'm going to label. I think you should do too, so you have a good place to walk through. When you're doing geometric shapes and objects, it's nice to kind of label when you're practicing where the darkest areas are, the lightest, and the midtones. The top of my box is the lightest, so it just gets a kind of a kiss of blue. The side of it on the left has more of a mid-tone of the blue, so not a ton of pressure, but enough to distinguish it. And then the back of the box has the deepest blue. So let's enhance the blue by that side of the box with the darkest layer by giving it a really strong separation against all the other sides. That helps it look more 3D already. Now, some things fade while other things just need dark sides. Like, so a box doesn't have fades in value, like fades of value. They just have distinct edges. So we're going to finish this up now. I'm going to put that ground landscape. I'm going to take that blue again, because that's the color of the landscape, and I'm going to fade it out. Again, that portrays a shadow. A yellow wouldn't do a good job darkening that blue, but an orange, which is the natural opposite of the blue, would. So I'm going to put a little of the orange just in the darkest area, and I'm going to take that blue I originally used and work it over it, and you get a really neat, nice, deep, interesting blue there. I can finish it off with a little bit of black to fade out, to give it a little extra three-dimensional oomph. Now I'm going to deepen that blue on the object with a little bit of orange, just a little. You can see it really translates darker. The reason we don't want to use black all the time to darken a color, black can sometimes just cover the color and you don't really see a good color mix. So that's the reason why we typically, when you're learning color, black sometimes can be the kiss of death, and it doesn't really show the colors that you're trying to describe. I'm going to put a little kiss of yellow on top of these objects, because if I'm imagining the sun is hitting it, a little kiss of yellow kind of reflect color. When it comes to, I'm just going to use pencil here, but when it comes to drawing a cylinder or something that's open, like has an open form, like a cylinder can have an open form, and so can a cone. If you want to just fill it, that means the cone is closed on the bottom, but if you want it to make it feel like it's open, you want to shade it down, and it'll make it look like an object has an open form, like a tunnel, like so. And the same thing would be done in color here, but I'm just using pencil to describe that. And even shading across here would be a subtle fade of dark to light. I'm using this based on the light source I see. You could also do a simple fill, but a fade, again, creates more three-dimensionality. Okay, everyone, so now take advantage of this time to create a layout similar to mine so you can practice and get honing your skills using color and trying different varieties of color mixes to create beautiful darks. Good luck.